Hi everybody, I'm Greg Fishel. Welcome to bonus weather video number 2 for this week, and going to be taking a look at some verifications, some actual verifications of U.S. model forecasts, specifically the GFS, which is the main American deterministic model. And what motivated me to go to all the trouble to do this is a sequel to the rant that you've heard me make many times over the past week about the fact that people on YouTube and social media are showing you 384-hour forecasts like they're gospel. And then they'll try to get out of it at the end of the video by saying, now this is not my forecast. I'm just showing you this. Well, if you don't think that's what is going to happen, or you don't think there's a decent chance of that happening, why in God's name are you showing it to me in the first place? Okay? I know why you're doing it. And deep down inside, you know why you're doing it. Okay? So you can get eyeballs, so you can get paid, and you can get rich. And you don't give a darn about serving the public because it's all about your business and you making money and you getting attention. Okay? Everybody knows that, including you, if you were willing to admit it. All right? So let's move on here. Oops, I think I have to click this so I can forward the graphic. There we go. So this all started back on November 15th when there was one run of the GFS model that showed a huge Arctic outbreak coming into the United States in 2 weeks, okay, just after Thanksgiving. So if we take a look at the last 31 high temperature forecasts from the GFS, verifying the 2 days after Thanksgiving, so this is still more than a week away, okay? But I went back to 384-hour forecasts, and then the latest one that I got, and I did this yesterday, was 204, okay? So we start off, at about 51. We go up to 76, down to 42, up to 73, down to 49, up to 75, down to 40, and then finally, the last several runs, it has stabilized a little bit. But when you see this, is there any reason on God's green earth why you would want to show anybody a forecast from this model this far out when you see this kind of garbage, okay? It doesn't make any sense. Now, subsequently today, I did figure out a way to go even farther back in time, and so I took yesterday, okay, the actual high temperature at RDU yesterday, and then I compared all the forecasts back to 384 hours before yesterday, and compared it where if you just use climatology, and what is that? That's the 30-year average or the normal high temperature for the day, okay? And this is really how skill in a model is evaluated. If you can do a better job by just using the normal high temperature for a date, and you can beat the model doing that, then the model has no skill, okay? Absolutely nothing. So let's go back here. Now I put a legend up here at the top. The blue line is the actual GFS model forecast, and these are all verified yesterday for the high temperature yesterday. The orange line is what actually happened, 63, I believe it was. And then climatology is the 30-year average of the normal high temperature, and that is 62, okay? So if you would have forecasted just, all the way back to 16 days, if you would have just forecasted the high today based on the 30-year average for November 20th, that's how much your error would have been, okay? Now, here's the actual GFS forecast. About 67, 49, 75, 77, 35, back up to 68, down to what, 51, back up to 75, and then again, finally, in the last several days leading up to yesterday, it got pretty close, okay? So this is indicting information on using models this far out into the future, okay? It is so irresponsible. Do I wish the models were better than this? Heck yes, but they're not, at least not the American one. And that's going to be the next thing I'm going to talk about here. Now, there is a professor whose name is Cliff Mass. He's a very well-respected professor of meteorology at the University of Washington out in Seattle. And I've only met Cliff on a couple of occasions. He probably wouldn't know me from Adam, but I've read a lot of his published papers and had a couple of brief conversations with him. And he looks and talks a lot like Al Michaels. Every time I think of Cliff, I think of Al Michaels, the sports announcer, because they look and they sound very much alike. But anyways, he has a blog, and if you just do a search for Cliff Mass blog UW, it'll come up, okay? So back in May, he made this statement. The U.S. Global Prediction Model, the GFS, is now in 4th place behind the European Center, the UK Meteorology Office, and the Canadian Meteorology Office, okay? We're supposed to be like the brightest and the best, right? As of May, we were in 4th place. Now, this is a very complicated map, but basically what you're looking at here is forecasts from the GFS, the European, the Canadian, the UK Met, the Navy model, and the Climate Forecast System model, which is also a US product that goes out months in advance. And it's even worse than the GFS, okay? So, if you have a skill score, and that's what this is over here, 1 is perfect, and then if you get below 0.65, it's pretty useless, okay? So do we have any of that showing up here? Yeah, the GFS bottoms out below 0.65 on this particular day. And the blue line that you see there is the Climate Forecast System model, which is, again, a US product, which is even worse than the GFS. And then you see the green over here, and that's the Navy model here, so it doesn't do a terribly good job either. I don't know if this is the best of the Navy models. I don't know enough about what they do to formulate an opinion. It's just that that particular one doesn't do really, really well, or at least didn't at this particular period here. But when you take a look at the European, which is in the orange, look how high up it is here. And this is a 6-day forecast, 144 hours, all the way through the month of April. Never even gets close to that 0.65 down there. And then this was the verification of a 5-day forecast, and this came from, Cliff actually picked this up from a guy named Ryan Maui, who also has a PhD and does a lot of great work online with forecast verifications, among other things. And again, if we take a look at just the raw numbers up here, over the 90 days prior to this period, the European had a skill score of 0.94, the GFS was 0.9, which is not bad. And then the artificial intelligence model from the European was 0.94, okay? Over the last 30 days prior to this period, 0.93, 0.88, and 0.94. And then over the last 7 days of this period, 0.90, 0.85, and 0.92. So again, the European and the artificial intelligence model the Europeans are running were superior to the GFS on all of those occasions. Okay, now, I'm going to sort of cover this up for just a second. I've told you many times that I am a registered independent. I think our political system is broken. I think we have lost the ability as a society to engage in critical thinking. I don't think we have a two-party system anymore. I think we have a two-cult system in this country where you have unconditional loyalty to a given ideology and you are unwilling to accept the remotest of possibilities that you could be wrong about anything, okay? But in the way that this relates to me, in my field, I feel like I do have to have an opinion and I do need to make it public. And Cliff made a statement that I couldn't agree with anymore. And if this upsets some of you, so be it, okay? I'm just talking about my concerns about my particular field and what's going on in Washington right now, okay? So let me get out of the road so you can take a look at this. The current administration wants to fix NOAA and make American weather prediction great again. But during the first months of their tenure, it has made serious errors, such as mindlessly firing junior staff. Will they talk to the meteorological community to develop a science-informed plan that could greatly improve U.S. environmental prediction and do so at a lesser cost than today? I hope so. It would be a home run for the American people. Amen, Cliff. Okay? When you start cutting back on the weather balloon launches and you start cutting back on critical staff, especially during severe weather situations, I don't think there's anybody in the world that doesn't want to get rid of government waste. But you've got to think carefully about it. You've got to be very, very strategic in terms of determining where is that waste and where isn't that waste. And I can tell you right now, without any shadow of a doubt, the current administration is getting rid of stuff that is not wasteful. It is essential, okay? And they need to sit down, instead of being so skeptical about the scientific community today, sit down with these folks, have an honest discussion, be willing to admit that you might be wrong about something. And if you really want to make America great again as it relates to weather forecasting, then talk to the people that actually know something about it. Okay? All right. End of the slides. All right. That is bonus weather video along with commentary for this Friday, November 21st. I hope you have a wonderful Friday evening. I hope you have an even better weekend. And I will talk to you again on Monday. And of course, the daily update will be coming up in just a little bit. So you all take care, folks. Love you all, and we'll talk to you soon. See you later.